Hello everybody, and welcome to the Cornish Stitcher podcast, episode 2. My name's Vanessa, or Ness. I am coming to you from southeast Cornwall, a small town in southeast Cornwall. I love to knit, crochet, sew. I have a little Etsy shop which I will link below, in which I have things like project bags and things. But this podcast isn't necessarily about those. I don't think I've got any of them with me today, but feel free to have a look. I live, as I say, in Cornwall with my husband, Matt, my 2 children, Ethan, who's 15, and Monty, who is 9. And then my parents, we all live in one multi-generational house. I have 2 dogs, and 2, but possibly 3 coming cats. So our neighbour has moved. He's a teacher, and he has moved to, he's returned to teaching in China, and currently needs to rehome his little cat, and Monty has requested that we adopt her. So we may be about to return to being a family of 3 cats with 2 dogs. She's a beautiful small little black young cat. Monty has wanted his own pet for a significant amount of years, so I think his dream may be about to come true. We have been away for half term. I wanted to come back and do another podcast before now, but we were away for half term, and I'll talk about that nearer the end when I talk about acquisitions. So this podcast, as I say, is episode number 2. That will follow a very familiar pattern of finished objects, works in progress, and acquisitions, and then just general catch up. I still have a serious case of imposter syndrome. I've got to drink. This is actually the second time I've recorded this. The first time I recorded it with the phone that way up, and my son has just reminded me that that will not transfer to YouTube very well, and therefore have to re-record the whole thing. He said, "How long have you recorded?" I said, "About 25 minutes. And he went, "Yeah, that's not going to work. People are not going to watch it that way up for 25 minutes. You need to re-record it." So I'm back here doing a repeat of what I've already said, essentially, but that's fine. Right, first finished object. So the day after I filmed the first podcast, I was off to a workshop for colour work, and I have never ever done colour work before. I was brand new to knitting with 2 strands. I've just about mastered knitting in 1 strand this year. Was taught as a child, and then promptly gave up, became a very competent and confident crocheter, as I said last time, but knitting wasn't my forte until about 12 months ago, and then I picked up the needles and haven't really looked back since, to the point that I had to admit to my very keen, very competent crochet friend that I think, in her words, I've gone to the dark side and prefer 2 needles to 1 hook. Yes, and then when I tried colour work, I absolutely prefer 2 needles to 1 hook. I know that crochet works up much quicker. I love the speed that crochet works up, but I really, really am enjoying the options open to me for knitting. And I just love it. I just love the muscle memory part of it. I just love knitting. So last time, yes, as I say, I was on my way to my workshop the following day, as part of the town's local wool festival, and I had knitted the rib of what was to become a cowl, a colourwork cowl, and here is the result. I am so pleased with it. I finished it on the first day of our holiday in France. There was a lot of driving. We had to drive from Cornwall to Folkestone on the Saturday by Hastings to see some family. And then we got the Channel Tunnel really early on the Sunday morning, and then a 5-hour drive down to see my husband's friend in Angers for 24 hours. So there was a lot of opportunity for knitting when I wasn't doing the driving part, and I just love it. I'll pop it on, and I just think it's gonna make my make my dog walks on windy beaches really snug. But I love it. My hair, take my hair out, and I just love it. This is a wool from Northumberland that I purchased when I was on holiday, and my sister and I went to a local yarn producer. I'll link it down below, and we had just the intention of going to have a look round, and we ended up buying wool. And I just it's a bit not scratchy, it's a little bit rough, it's very wool feeling, but I think it'll soften once it's been washed in a special wool wash. And then this was just a Chester Wool Company's one in my stash, this much softer, but I just love it, and I can't wait to wear it. It's not been quite cold enough yet to wear it, although saying that, we've had some stormy weather the last couple of weeks where I probably could have worn it and got away with it, and then this week it's supposed to be much better. And then I've walked on the coast path on the North Cornish coast for 3 days running, and needed a bobble hat and my hoodie, so I think I probably could have got away with it this morning as well. But it's just love. I just love the effect and the magic that seems to be of colour work. I just love it. Anyway, I'll take that off. So there we go. I haven't blocked it. I probably should block it. I probably will block it. But I'm really pleased with the underside as well. I know that the flows are quite hard to manage, and some of them, because they're quite long flows, she said to us, if we had more than 3 or 4 stitches, then to twist the wool halfway along the flow. So that's what we did to avoid it showing through. And I think actually they're quite neat. They're not awful for a first time, I think. And somebody at my Knit and Natter group said, oh, the tension was quite good for a first colour work. It's not pulled tight. So yeah, I'm really pleased. Really pleased with it. Yes. So put that down. And then my only other, I knitted some poppies for Remembrance Day, because I saw Gaynor from the Cuckoos podcast talking about the same thing in her Vlogtober. The little plastic centres of the poppies just seem such an extortionate amount of plastic waste. And so I decided to make us poppies this year and gave a donation to the Poppy Appeal, the same as I would if I purchased a poppy. But I just said to them, no, I'll wear this poppy, but I'll happily give a donation. And this is, I just did some simple ribs and then put a black button in the middle. I'm always a firm supporter of remembrance events. I used to be a teacher, and I used to absolutely hone it onto the children about the importance of remembrance. But this year, whilst we were in France, we went to visit the British cemetery, one of the British cemeteries, and we visited what would have been my great uncle's grave. So my great grandfather and his brother. So my great grandfather and his brother Thomas were fighting on the Somme in the First World War in 1917, and my great grandfather they were both in an explosion. He lost his leg, and my mum always talks about how she remembers her grandfather with his prosthetic leg propped up in the side of the house, and she grew up without any stigma attached to disability whatsoever because of it. But he tragically lost his brother in the same event. He died next to him, and we managed to find both his gravestone and the entry into the book. So this year, I think for us as a family, Remembrance held just a little bit more of a personal connection, particularly to the First World War. And then we took the children to Dunkirk Beach as well. We had visited in March, and it's the most, I don't know, humbling experience, actually, I think I've had. And we went to Dunkirk Beach and talked to them about the history of what happened, and the fact that my grandfather, my mum's dad, was supposed to be at Dunkirk, but had been given some anti-malaria medication and had had an allergic reaction and was in hospital. But his platoon unit still went, and lots of his friends and comrades didn't return. And so for us, both of those two visits really made Remembrance have just a little bit more of a personal connection, which I think for children these days is really important, to understand what's gone before them. So yeah, so I was really proud of my poppies, and we wore them all of us wore them with pride this year. Yeah. And then my next finished object is half finished object, half whip. So I have started a pair of socks for my husband for Christmas, and I finished one. It's really lovely yarn. The lights in here is not great. I'm filming in here because there are people everywhere else in the house, but the light's not brilliant. So I love the different flecks. Each stitch is a totally different colour, and it's this yarn here. Yeah, and it was from a bargain bucket that I picked up in Wonderwool in April in Wales. And I'm sorry, I don't know who it was by. It was just in a bargain bucket, and the label didn't have who it was dyed by, but I just love it. But I took this sock mid-progress to my college course on Friday, and on my college course is another accomplished knitter, and she said, I think it's too big. And there were 72 stitches on a 2.5 needle for my husband, and I said, well, I'm following the pattern. She convinced me it was possibly too big, so I've had to show him to get him to try it on, and it fits fine. He doesn't have massive feet. He only has size sort of 8.5 to 9 feet, but he works outside for most of the workday and in boots, and so his view is that he'll wear an under sock and then put these over the top, so it should hopefully stop them felting as well. But he didn't really want a huge long leg, so I've done I think it's 49 rows of stocking stitch up, and then a 12-row rib on the top. He's tried it on, he really likes it, but as I say, it's for Christmas, so he's not allowed them until Christmas Day. Given I've only done one anyway, and this is the other one ready to make. I'm off to Knit and Natter tonight, so I'm hoping that I can make a start on it. But both this and my other whip are Christmas presents, and so they are vying for attention, both of them. My second whip is the blanket for my friend for Christmas. I do not like crocheting in cotton. It's a real bugbear of mine. However, the friend concerned has a wool allergy, and so couldn't have any real wool. Has recently had her house decorated, in sort of very neutral black and white tones, and was on about having a white blanket. So I've sucked it up, so to speak, and decided to do her a crochet blanket in cotton so that she can use it all the time. And so I'm using the James C. Brett. It's 100% pure DK cotton. I have to say, although I don't like working in cotton, both for its fluidity and its drape, I should say, and the fact that 9 times out of 10 when I use it, it splits, this has been far better than most I've ever used for crochet or knitting. So I'm really pleased with it. I need to get another couple of balls. I was doing these, I'll show you the squares, but I was making the squares. They are about 9.5 inches square, and I thought I only needed 12, but I think I'm going to need 16, which means I've got 10 left to make and only 5 weeks till Christmas. So I need to crochet rapidly and make another sock and potentially a pair of socks for Monty, but come on to that. I'm not sure if I'm going to make it. The blanket will have to be definitely done, and the socks for Matt will have to definitely be done. Monty's might have to wait, he doesn't know about them. So this is the blanket. So I took inspiration from the Honey Milk Throw, which is the blanket I found on Ravelry, but I don't want to do all of the squares that she's done. So I've used 1 square of that and 1 traditional granny square, which I'm alternating in a checkerboard pattern. So I'm using this one. They need blocking, so please excuse the lack of blocking. They don't look that big actually, but they are massive. They're, as you can see, they're bigger than my head. So they are 9 inches. They're 11 rounds. I don't know what's going on there. They're 11 rounds, and these are the other ones. So just a traditional granny square. But actually, when they're held together in a blanket, I don't think I'll be able to do it. When they're held together in a blanket, I really like the effect of them next to each other. And I think, although I'm moaning about the drape, I think it'll be a lovely blanket to have over you, because the drape will be really nice. And they're working out really well. They're really soft. It's really soft actually to work with. As I say, it's not splitting. I thought I'd bought white, but it's shade IC09, which I think there might be an even purer white. I think this is sort of an off-white, which will work perfectly in her lounge because their sofas are cream. So it will be perfect so long as I finish it. My aim is to do 16 squares, as I say, and then do a border around the edge, and hope that I've got enough yarn. I've got, I think, 5 balls left, and I'm getting 2 balls, 2.5 squares out of each one. So I should get 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, and my worry is that I won't have enough, so I need to get another ball, I think, for the border, whilst I can get the same dye lot. I'll get that tonight while I go to Knit and Natter, because it all came from the shop and my local yarn store called Knit Happens in Bodmin. So I'm hoping that that's what I can do, and that I can get it finished. Watch this space, she says confidently. Yes, I'll get it done, why not? Yeah, so those are my 2 whips, and I did have other whips on the go at the previous podcast, but they've had to go into hibernation because they're not urgent at the moment. One's a cowl, no, one's a scarf by Rosie's Moments, and one's a long-term blanket that's just gone. Oh, another, so I have one finished object that I forgot to talk about, which I think I talked last time about the fact that I had got interested in doing some dyeing of yarn. So I had done some dyeing of fabric on my new college course that I'm doing, Creative Textiles, twice a week, on a Friday in Falmouth, is the one session. and we had dyed fabric, and I said, does this work with yarn? And she said, yeah, I think so. So I then went to the yarn festival in our town and purchased some alum mordant and some logwood dye stuff with the intention of dyeing some. I'd got some minis that I'd got a couple of years ago from the Chester Wool Company, and I purchased a large hank from the lady who was selling the mordants, and I had a go. So I mortared into the yarn, and then I simmered away the dye stuff, strained it, and then decided I wanted an ombre effect. So I dipped a bit of the yarn in, then submerged a bit more, then a bit more, then a bit more, and it is amazing colour. I am just in love with the colour. So this is how it's turned out. It's not working very well on here. It's variegated, and it's gone like an ombre effect. And I've done 2 minis, which my aim is to use these minis. This end is just such a deep, deep purple indigo colour, and then these are much paler. So my plan is that I've also got, when we were at Yarndale, I purchased a scrappy bag of minis from Lay Family Yarns to make up my own advent calendar. So my husband is wrapping those so that I don't know what's coming on what day. And then my intention is to use those in the new year for a sweet shop blanket. And that then I will incorporate these 2 in as the triangles for that. But I'm, yeah, really, really pleased with how they turned out. And the large hank is very similar. I can't twist this now. The large hank is very, very similar to how these have turned out. So if anything, the deeper colour is even deeper, almost black in parts, and then fades up to a very, very pale lilac. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. I don't know what I'm going to use that one for, but now I've saved a load of onion skins in the kitchen, ready to do onion skin dyeing on another set of yarn that I've purchased a while ago. Undyed yarn, I wasn't sure what I was going to use it for. And I've got one with a stellina in, and I'm thinking that the stellina will look gorgeous with some yellow onion skin dye. So we'll see how we go with that one. I'll let you know. Acquisitions. So we, as I say, we went on holiday to France in October half term as a family for 4. Left the dogs with my parents. We went and drove from here to Folkestone down to Angers. Did a couple of days in Angers and then drove back up the coast, and then we did a day in Bruges. Matt and I went for 3 days to France in March for his birthday and discovered that you could drive to Bruges from Calais quite easily for the day, and it is beautiful. Fell in love with Bruges the first time I went there. Took the children this time, and the children were totally enamoured with the amount of chocolate shops, as you can imagine. They thought it was wonderful. But I had been savvy enough to Google wool shops before we went. And alongside a couple of the chocolate shops was the yarn shop. And I went in and they were having a knit and natter session with local ladies, and they were so welcoming. They invited me in, they asked if I wanted to join them, they spoke English, and they were really, really welcoming. I had a husband and 2 children, so accompanying me outside, so there was no chance I could get a session of knit and nattering. But I'll pop the details if I can find them down below, so that you'll be able to find them. If you're ever in Bruges, pay a visit. They were such a lovely, lovely, lovely shop. But whilst in there, I said, have you got any local yarns? And she said, no, we have French yarns and I think German. I think they were German yarns. But I purchased some French yarn here. So I purchased 2 balls of Fildar, Phil Romance. No, so it's white. It does have a slight halo on it, which when I knit with wool with a halo, sometimes I end up getting a ring around each individual piece of yarn. But I'm hoping that this won't be the case. This is not a colour. It's coming across quite true. It's like a peachy pink. This is not a colour I would choose normally. I am vibrant pink, absolutely. But this kind of muted pink, never. But I just love the effect of them together. I have no idea what I'm going to make with them. I might hold them double. I might not. This, I think, would make a beautiful other part of the Sweet Shop blanket. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you can get it in this country. I'll have to have a look. It's Ecru, this one. And this one is Blush. So the name of the yarn actually on there is in English. No. But it is beautiful. And I highly recommend the shop. Before going to France on the Thursday before we went, I went to the theatre with my friend to see a very funny play. And we went to, so the previous week I'd been to Exeter, and fallen into Wool on the X, which is a wonderful wool shop in Exeter, with the intention of making another one of my cowls, but Christmassy colours. And so I'd purchased these. They are Samilla, BC Garn Samilla, in this really lovely green and this beautiful red. But then on the Thursday when I went to the theatre, I called into Truro wool, because I really wanted to make a red and white cowl. And the lady at Wool on the X tells me that this is between a 4-ply and a DK weight. It's not one, not the other. It's sort of in the middle. So I presume 6-ply. And I've bought a 4-ply, a DK weight white to hold with it. Also has a beautiful halo. So I'm hoping to make a cowl out of these two, so that it's very Scandinavian. But it's going to have to wait until the other two whips are done, because I need to get the Christmas presents done. But they are so, I mean, this is so soft. It's unbelievably so. I mean, it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't huge. It wasn't wasn't extortionate amount of money, but it is luxury touch. It's 50% polyacrylic and so 50% polyamide, but it is so 50% acrylic, 50% polyamide, but it's so soft, and I think it'll look lovely with that. But then that leaves this, and I don't know what I'm going to do with this, so I might get another white to put with that, because I think that also looks really nice. I'm not sure. This is what I do. I buy from my stash when I see them, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'll make this, and then I don't make it, and then I'm like, oh, I've still got it in my stash, which is how come I had the cream for the original cowl. And then only one other acquisition. Last Friday, my mum asked me to call into Hobbycraft on my way past to get her a sketchbook. And Monty had been harassing me, asking me for some socks, because he knows I'm making them for his daddy for Christmas. So I've bought the wool for socks. I don't think his birthday is 10 days before Christmas. I don't think with the blanket and the socks that I've got on the needles at the moment that I'm going to have time. But I've got the wool in the hope that I can. Monty, like his daddy, is very knit worthy. He really appreciates the time and effort that goes into it. But he is also a typical 9-year-old rough and tumble boy. And the thought of giving him hand-dyed yarn for socks filled me with the heebie-jeebies, because he ends up with holes in things quicker than a colander. So I just thought I'm just going to whip into Hobbycraft, get this sketchbook and see if they've got any 4-ply sock yarn. And they had this one, which is perfect colourway for him. He will love those colours. He hasn't seen it. I'm not going to show him because he'll be asking for it now. I think it's going to self-stripe because of how it looks in the ball. But it's a Women's Institute one, and it is the purple and blue mix there. But yeah, I think he'll love it. If I can get them on the needles, obviously they're smaller than the ones for Matt, so if I can get them on the needles, then at least maybe make a dent in them, then I will. I mean, I finished this other sock in just over a week, so if I can finish Matt's other sock in another week, then I might stand an outside chance of doing it. I've got to do 2 squares a week for the blanket and a border, and then I've got 5 weeks till Christmas. That'll leave me 4 weeks on my display. I reckon I could do it. Let's see. Yeah, so that brings me to the end of my acquisitions. I said I wasn't going to have any acquisitions this time, and then look at me. Right, I'm not going to any yarn stores between now and Christmas, she says. I don't think. The problem I've got is also that the college course on a Friday is held in Falmouth, and Falmouth has an amazing wool store called Stitches and Cream, which I try and avoid because it's a totally different side of Falmouth to my course. So I have no excuse to go there. I do not have to go past the door. I do not have to go near their parking area. I do not have to do any of the such thing. So if I'm going there, it is bad. It's for a specific reason. But sometimes I can't stop myself. It's amazing. They have a whole wall of wool. Oh, it's brilliant. Last time on the podcast, I told you about how much of a thrill seeker I am around wild weather, and I love it. But even I, drew the line at Storm Kieran last week. It was just a little bit too wild. But this week we've had some amazing waves. I had to go over to the north coast of Cornwall. It's never a chore to go from, we live on the nearer the south coast of the county than the north coast of the county, but I'm a north coast girl by heart, and we used to live in Padstow, so I absolutely love going, and I will go to the north coast at any opportunity. In fact, I've been for the last 3 days running for various different appointments and reasons, and yesterday arrived and the day before arrived to find it very windy. So I'll see if I can pop some videos at the end of the impressive waves again, that like I did last time. But this is North Coast, so they are spectacular. It's North Atlantic. Sorry, it's the Atlantic on the North Coast. It's brilliant. But yes, thank you for watching. I'm hoping to take part in Vlogmas. I have a very keen 9-year-old Monty who wants to join in if he can, and a very unkeen 15-year-old Ethan who's going, don't film me. So I will have a go and see if I can do it. If that's something you would like, then please watch. If you've liked this, then tick like and maybe give a subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. That would be really lovely. And I will try and pop links in the description box below for things like the yarn shop in Bruges. And yeah, I'm hoping to be back before Christmas for a podcast, but certainly, as I say, for Vlogmas, and then hopefully be able to show you things like the blanket and the other sock that are done, and hopefully not too many acquisitions. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye.